So now that we've learned some fundamentals on lighting, you might actually say, well, where do I start? Okay, so I understand how light is like water. I understand how the distance from the light to the subject, if it doubles, I reduce by 75%, blah, blah, blah. Where the hell do I begin now when I light my subject? Well, some people and some photographers, I'm not saying this is wrong, have created styles on one kind of lighting. I backlight everything. I'm a natural light shooter. I don't use flash. I use on-camera flash or off-camera flash as much as possible. That's okay. I'm telling you, fine. I personally would strongly recommend that if you recommend to really understand different qualities of light, different types of light, because there'll be situations where you would need to know how to use all these different kind of light sources. So if you only practice what you're good at, well, yeah, you'll get better at it. But then if you ignore what you're not good at, then all of a sudden you'll be posed with a very challenging situation and not know what to do. So please don't just call yourself a natural light shooter. That's like saying, well, hashtag, I don't know how to use flash. So please, yes, you can create a style out of it, and many people have, and very successfully, but just know your lighting. Know, like no different than a musician can just know one song, or wouldn't it be great to know how to read music, that you can actually do it for any genre that you basically want? I'm saying to you that just like music, essentially we have 12 notes that are played over and over again, and that's certainly been popularized by A Star Is Born. I had that sort of in my head as I was saying that. There's 12 notes that really make up the sound of almost any instrument. The thing is that what do you play? What's your song? How do you make it different? Well, how do you put those notes together? Well, lighting your subject shouldn't just be, well, I'm going to light you like this because that's just my style. I personally believe that your lighting should dictate pretty much what you're trying to say, either about that story, about that subject, about that person, if you want to define shape, if it's for flattery, if it's to make someone look sinister, whatever it may be, you just have to know how to use these light sources. So this segment really is more about really what you're trying to say and showing you how light can look dramatically different depending on the way it's shaped. So this one here, for example, I have the sun reflecting off a reflector, and she's turning her body away from the light and turning her face back in. But you would say this is quite sexy. It defines the shape of her bust, the shape of her body. There's beautiful modeling on her face and her cheekbone and her jawline, and things look beautiful. But now look at the difference now when we combine that with full sun and then the sun through a diffuser. So what are we saying about this girl? We're saying three different things. We're saying perhaps more sexy in the left. We're saying more fashiony in the middle, more sort of quite dramatic. And then we're saying it's a little bit more soft and pretty. Now, yes, we can do those things, for example, guys, with expression or whatever it may be. That's fine. We can do that. But without saying a single word, without an overt expression, the fact is that we can do this with lighting. And that's what I'm getting at, is that every part of an image should really be premeditated. I'm not talking about photojournalism or anything like that, but if you are saying something about a bride or a portrait client or whatever it may be, what you want to do is describe what you want with lighting, with cropping, with composition, with feeling, emotion, mood, exposure. Everything should scream what you want to say to the viewer of that photograph about that subject, person, landscape, whatever it may be. But again, we see very different looks for the same girl with different lighting. How about this one? We have just some soft light reflecting off the door back on her face. It's very soft, it's very pretty. The smile suits that. But now look at what we've got going on here. This is complete sunlight, and all of a sudden she looks like a different person. And I'm not saying that we can't do both of those. I believe, quite simply, I want to give my brides a variety between something that's a bit soft and pretty and also something that's maybe a little bit more dramatic as well. So it just depends on what you're trying to say with your client. Okay, this girl. We've got sort of soft, we've got some strong backlight with the sun. It's reflecting off a piece of white wall. So it's a bigger light source. So we've made a small light source a bigger light source in relation to the subject. And now it softens her. She looks quite soft and innocent. Almost, you would somewhat almost say vulnerable. Now, let's now look at this. Once we get the sun out and then we get a dramatic sort of fashionable kind of a pose, look at the difference between young, innocent, you know, almost vulnerable, and then we've got a stronger light source, the full sun, and she looks like a completely different person. So we need to know that lighting is not just about flattery, it's also about describing something, describing shape and form, describing personality and so on. So let's look at this girl, for example, this couple. This is backlight, so it's been backlit with the sun. We've got sort of some open shade in the foreground. It's soft, it's pretty, it's elegant. Now then we put her next to a window, and again, think of that sort of that big shower head, as we talked about light like water. We've got that big shower head here illuminating her. It's quite soft. Then we've got those luxurious shadows. It looks a little bit more sensual, a little bit more sexy, of course, that she's also got the dress off in the back. And so I'm adding mood with lighting, I'm adding mood with pose, and I'm adding mood with what she's wearing and or what she's not wearing, or whatever we're doing. Let's look at this. This is a makeup mirror. It's very glamorous. We've got light bulbs all around, and she's right next to that makeup mirror, so it's sort of quite soft and it's quite flat, it's iridescent. It just makes her look absolutely beautiful, but it's very glamorous. Now, when I use window light and I stand where the window is and go front on, do you see how soft and pretty she looks? Now, she's a gorgeous girl, there's no doubt, but when you use different kind of lighting, we're saying something different about this bride. Now we're on a boat, we're ready to go to the ceremony that's just right along the river there. Now we've got complete full sun, and it looks more fashiony, it's quite dramatic. Now look at all of these together. This is the exact same woman, but look at what happens. We've got sort of soft and pretty on the top left. Here we've got very soft and sexy and sensual. We've got very pretty on the bottom left there as well. It's more iridescent than the top left one, as you can see, because that was backlit. The main light source on the bottom left is what's hitting her. The main light source is actually from behind. Then you've got the open shade. Here is quite glamorous. It's sort of wrapping around her quite beautifully. And then here we have a very strong direction of light, a small quality of light, of course, the sun. We feel like it's actually, as we've said before, we feel like it's a big light. So it's actually small when it hits direct. And that's why we get those sort of strong shadows. But we are saying something different. And I'm not saying to you guys that you have to say the same thing about this girl all day, because that's who she is. She's just soft and pretty and elegant and playful. Therefore, I'll use all that lighting the whole day way through. I like to think that many of people that we photograph, including myself, I have very different parts of my personality. And if I was being photographed, I would like some shots that are playful, more dramatic, more cool, whatever it may be that I want to portray in that photograph, or what the photographer deems fit with that as well. Now look at this guy. Cool looking dude, tough guy, he's got a bit of a tattoo going on there, whatever, but you sort of see how the lighting is quite flat on him. Maybe you might introduce him to your parents, for example, but then when you get some dramatic lighting and then we start looking at him here, now he arguably looks, you know, a little bit more sinister or a little bit more threatening rather than maybe like this. But so do you see how lighting is not just, let me just make him look handsome? Well, we can make him look handsome in both ways with both kinds of lighting, but we've got the sunlight reflecting off a building to illuminate him here, and then here we have off-camera flash. So I like to say different things about different people at different times of day because I think it's really cool. All right, so what about this gentleman? Great character face. I love his beard, great eyes. Here it's quite a soft light. You can see how there's backlight and there's some soft light. He's got mature age skin, so you think that the softer light sort of hitting him is actually making his skin look pretty good. But watch what happens when we do something like this. The lighting is coming up quite high. Now we've got shadows underneath the eyes. It's quite dramatic. It's almost Game of Thronesy. And you see more detail. You see more of his pores. You see more the texture of his beard, his upper beard, and all these different things. Then if I actually illuminate him on the other side, so I'm illuminating him from this side, then it looks very dramatic. I'm split lighting him. It's very masculine. And then I've got a bit of a hint of a squint in his eyes there as well. So now there's a lot more mystery to this shot. Now this one, all I have to do is slightly turn my angle and then I've got a different shot again. So if you look at all of these photographs, this is the exact same person. This was done within minutes of each other. So if you think about it, it's just so amazing that we can change the mood by simply changing the size of light, the pressure of the light, so to speak, the intensity of the light, the size, all these different things, the angle, the perspective, where I stand, where they stand in proportion to the angle, all these different things can change the actual, what we're trying to say about that particular person. So this segment really, guys, is all about this. You might ask me, how do I light my subject? Now, I'm going to answer with a question myself. Well, what are you trying to say?